The storm turned the most powerful alpha in existence into a shivering beggar on my concrete porch. Ice water dripped from the hem of his expensive suit. He thought he was here to cut a deal with a savage warlord. He was. But he didn't know that Warlord was the girl he discarded like trash 3 years ago. And he certainly didn't know about the shadow clinging to the rusted leg of my throne. A small boy, with eyes that burned the exact same shade of gold. Chapter 1. The heat didn't just burn, it chewed. It stripped the moisture from the air until eyes felt like dried fruit left on a rock. Nova wiped her forehead. Grease smeared across her pale skin, gritty as sand mixed with engine oil. The water pump wheezed in her hands. A dying animal gasping for air. Come on. Her throat scraped raw. Don't you dare die on me, not today. This rusted junk was the only thing standing between them and the dust. Duct tape held the casing together. The intake valve flaked green corrosion. But it was beautiful. It was theirs. Mama! A small voice cut through the mechanical rasp. Nova didn't turn. She jammed the metal shim harder into the gears. Let go now, and pressure drops. Let go now, and they eat mud for dinner. Just a second, Leo. She kept her tone steady, soft. Mama's fixing it. Thirsty. The word landed harder than a fist to the gut. Thirsty. Ribs rattled against her heart. Thump. Thump. Panic tried to claw up her throat. She swallowed it down. Panic burns energy. Panic makes hands shake. She needed rock-steady hands. She torqued the metal spoon. Hard. Gods don't live in the Deadlands, she muttered to the machine. Start working yourself. Metal groaned against metal until a smooth hum, a thin stream of clear water hit the tin bucket. Nova let out a breath she didn't know she held, shaky. She capped the flow, grabbed a dented cup, and turned. Leo sat on a pile of rug scraps, dust-matted hair the color of evening storms, but those eyes... Nova flinched, one brown, the other a piercing, glowing amber. Alpha eyes. Here, baby. She knelt on the hard-packed earth. The cup met his cracked lips. He drank greedily, water turning the dust on his chin into streaks of mud. A fierce, hot ache bloomed in her chest. Love, terrifying and heavy. She would eat ash. She would wear scrap metal. She would live in this hell forever to keep him safe. She brushed his hair back. His skin burned too hot. We need the medicine. The Deadlands fever crept into his lungs. She could hear the faint rattle in his breath. The black box on her hip buzzed against her bone. Buzz, buzz, buzz. 3 times. Pattern. Intruder. The mother vanished. The warlord stepped forward, back straight. Eyes narrowed. She grabbed the nail gun by the cot. Modified. High velocity. Steel. Leo. Low voice. Serious. Game time. Into the crate. The toddler scrambled off the rugs. He climbed into the reinforced shipping crate buried in the dirt floor, clutching a headless wooden wolf. Stay quiet. Like a mouse. Nova kicked the rug over the trapdoor. Gone. She stepped out of the tent and into the blinding white sun. Wind tasted like sulfur and old batteries. She squinted against the glare, raising binoculars. Heat shimmered off the salt flats. Ghost dancing. There, a convoy, not scavengers. Black armored SUVs, thick new tires tearing through the dust like sharks in water. On the lead car, a flag snapped, green and silver, jaws open. Nova lowered the binoculars. Metal dug into her palms. Air left her lungs. Not a trade delegation. Ronan, the Alpha himself in the wasteland. Fate or a curse, he was here. Nova flicked the safety off the nail gun. Let the dust coat her armor. She planted her feet as the convoy roared closer, kicking up a wall of sand that threatened to swallow the world. Welcome to hell, Your Majesty.
Copper and rot flooded his mouth. It wasn't just dust. It was the smell of things dying. Ronan stepped out of the armored SUV. The air tasted metallic, like chewing on a penny. Ozone, burnt rubber. Desperation. How does anyone survive this? Sweat pricked his skin under the wool jacket. Too hot. The sun beat down, heavy and unforgiving. His pack was back in the cool pine forest. But they were starving. And here he was, standing in a garbage heap, begging a warlord for a road. Alpha. Silas murmured at his shoulder. We should keep weapons drawn. These rogues possess no honor. Ronan shook his head. No weapons. We don't threaten people we need. He scanned the camp. No chaos, no filth, order. Tents lined up in straight rows, drainage ditches dug for storms, guards posted on the ridge, and in the center, a woman. Gray leather armor reinforced with street signs, face hidden behind a scarf and goggles, a creature born from the dust. Ronan walked forward. Boots ground the gravel to powder, crunch, crunch. Every step heavier than the last. He was tired. Tired of being strong. Tired of fixing things. He stopped 10 feet out. I am Alpha Ronan of the Silver River Pack. Dry air cracked his voice. I'm looking for the Warlord Nova. The woman stood perfectly still. Slowly, she reached up. She yanked the goggles down. The scarf followed. Gravity shifted. His heart stalled in his chest. Not a stranger. The face that haunted his dreams every night for 3 years. Nova? The word left his lips like a prayer, a confession. She looked harder. Flint eyes, wind-burned skin, a scar split her left eyebrow. No smile, no bow. You're trespassing, Ronan. Her voice wasn't a melody. It was smoking gravel. The Alpha, leader of thousands, lost his tongue. I didn't know. I didn't know it was you. Would it have mattered? She turned toward the main tent. Business inside. If you want to stare like you've seen a ghost, get back in your truck. Ronan followed. Inside, the air hung heavy. Grease and something else. Sweet milk? Nova stood by a crate table. No seat offered, no water. Ronan pulled the scroll from his jacket. Vellum, edged in gold leaf. It smelled of lavender and expensive ink. A treaty. He laid it on the crate. We need the pass, Nova. My people are starving. The council blocked the northern roads. The only way to food is through the Deadlands. Nova looked at the gold leaf shimmering in the gloom. She moved. Blur. Obsidian flashed. Thunk. Her dagger pinned the fancy paper to the dirty wood. The blade quivered. Ronan stared at the knife. Then at her. I don't care about your council. Her nostrils flared. I don't care about your pack. You threw me out. You sent me here to die. I didn't have a choice. The excuse tasted like ash. They would have killed you. So you killed me yourself. You erased me. I never erased you. His voice cracked. I look for you in every crowd. I smell for you on every wind. I made a mistake, Nova. A god-awful mistake. Silence, thick, heavy. Nova's chest heaved. A vein popped in her neck. Furious. But beneath the fury, a tremble? Ronan stepped closer. Voice low. I am begging you. Not as an alpha. As a man who is sorry. Help us. Nova searched his face. For a split second, he saw the girl who used to braid flowers into his fur. Then, the mask slammed down. Business. Strictly business. You want the road? You pay the toll. Anything. Name it. I want weapons, steel, and I want antibiotics. Ronan frowned. Antibiotics? Are you sick? Nova stiffened. Her gaze flicked to a rug in the corner. A micro-tremor. Fear. None of your concern, she snapped. Do we have a deal? Ronan stared at the rug. Then he heard it. Faint. Too faint for a human. But Ronan was a wolf. Thump, 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 thump. Rhythm under the dirt. Fast. Small. Ronan looked at Nova. Her hand hovered near the nail gun. Nova. he whispered. What is under the floor? Get out. She snarled, the nail gun leveled at his chest. Get out of my tent. Is there someone here? I said get out. She wasn't bluffing. She would shoot. Ronan raised his hands, palms open, surrender. Okay, I'm leaving. He backed out into the blinding sun. His mind raced. That heartbeat, rhythmic, fast. It sounded like family. And the scent inside, the milk, mixed with something else. Pine, his pine. Ronan gripped the car door handle until his knuckles turned white. Impossible. But his wolf scratched at the inside of his ribs, howling a truth he was too terrified to believe. He looked back at the swirling dust. She's hiding something, he whispered to Silas. And I'm not leaving until I find it.
The sky didn't just turn black, it bruised. Twilight in the Deadlands tasted of copper and unwashed bodies. Above, clouds the color of a fresh hematoma swirled over jagged rocks, heavy with acid rain. Nova planted her boots in the dirt. Don't look at him. Her eyes betrayed her. Ronan stood by the lead SUV, jacket gone, white shirt rolled to the elbows. His forearms were thick, roped with muscle and scarred from years of pack wars. He looked tired. Good. Unload the medical crates first. Dust coated her throat, cracking her voice. We need to move faster. Ronan strode toward the line of workers. The storm is 10 minutes out. Nova bristled. I know how to read the sky, Alpha. She snapped the words like dry twigs. I've survived out here for 3 years. I don't need a weather report from a tourist. She grabbed the handle of the nearest crate. Stamped with the High Council seal. Antibiotics. Leo's lifeblood. She pulled. Nothing. Heavy with glass vials and cooling packs. Nova gritted her teeth and dug her heels in. Lift it. A sharp, hot electric shock tore through her shoulder. Ignore it. She pulled again. Wood scraped against metal. A hand appeared next to hers. Large, warm, calloused. Let me. His voice was low. It vibrated in her chest. I've got it. Nova yanked the crate. Nova, it's too heavy. I said I've got it. They locked in a tug of war. Not over territory, over a wooden box. Ronan didn't let go. He stepped into her space. Pine needles and rain flooded her lungs. It was a scent that used to mean safety. Now it reeked of danger. The crate slipped. Watch out! Ronan lunged. His chest slammed into her back, catching the crate inches from the dirt. For one terrifying second, his arms wrapped her. His chin brushed her ear. Thump, thump. His heart hammered against her spine. It matched the rhythm of her own. Air vanished. Her skin remembered the heat, the way he used to hold her like the only fragile thing in a world of iron. The bond, burned, not dead, just buried under 3 years of ash. She shoved him away. Hard. Don't touch me. Her voice trembled. Ronan stumbled back. He looked at his hands, then at her. Gold eyes searched her face. Nova. Paper fluttered to the ground. It had slipped from the gap in her armor. Not a map. Not a treaty. A crude crayon, drawing on a ration wrapper. A black wolf with silver-tipped ears, standing next to a stick-figure boy. Ronan looked down. Nova lunged. No! She snatched the paper from the dirt, crumbling it into her fist until her knuckles turned white. Wind shifted. Rain hissed against the hot rocks like steam. What was that? Ronan's voice dropped. Quiet. Trash. She shoved the paper into her pocket. Just trash. Adrenaline spiked. She hoisted the crate, ignoring the scream of her muscles. Get your men back to the trucks. She turned her back. The storm is here. She walked away. No looking back. She didn't see the look on his face. He hadn't seen the drawing, clearly, but he had seen the panic. And he knew Nova wasn't just hiding a child. She was hiding his child.
Rain hammered the roof of the SUV. Ping, ping, ping. Ronan sat in the driver's seat, engine dead. The convoy slept, exhausted. But his eyes wouldn't close. Every blink brought her face back. The scar on her eyebrow, the grease on her cheek, the flinch. She hates me. And she should. He looked through the wet glass. The faint glow of a lantern lit the main tent, Nova's tent. A sound cut through the storm, not wind. A cry, high-pitched, terrified. A child. The hair on his arms stood up. His wolf bristled, screaming a single command, protect. He opened the door. Alpha? Silas mumbled from the back. Stay here. Ronan stepped into the mud. Rain instantly plastered the shirt to his chest. He moved silently, boots making no sound on the wet ground. He reached the tent, flap tied shut. The crying stopped, replaced by a soft murmur. Entering was an act of war, a death sentence. His hand moved anyway. He pulled the flap aside, inch by inch. Heat hit him, kerosene and dry earth. On the cot, the boy thrashed. No wolves? Nova sat on the edge, stroking the small back. Shh, Leo. It's okay. Mama's here. The blanket slipped off the boy's shoulder. Ronan stopped breathing. Skin rippled. Patches of soft, dark fur sprouted along the spine. Ears pointed, tufted with silver. Gravity failed. Ronan gripped the canvas until it tore. Black fur. Silver tips. Unique. Royal. The High Council said she miscarried. Lies. The boy whimpered, bones grinding in a transition too big for his small body. Ronan stepped inside. He's mine. The whisper landed like a thunderclap. Nova spun. No scream, no tears. Cold metal pressed against the center of his forehead. The safety clicked off, louder than the storm. Give me one reason. Her voice was ice. Her eyes were voids. Give me one reason not to paint this tent with your brains right now. Ronan didn't look at the gun. He looked past her, at the boy, at his son. Tears stung his eyes, hot. He has the silver tips. The words choked him. Nova, he has the silver tips. He is nothing to you. She pressed the barrel deeper. He is a ghost. You killed him the day you chose that bitch over me. I didn't know. You didn't ask. The space between them burned. Nova's finger tightened on the trigger. Walk away, Ronan. Walk away and forget what you saw. Or I swear to the gods, I will end this truce and your bloodline in the same breath. Ronan looked at her. He saw the terror behind the rage. She wasn't protecting a secret. She was protecting a life. Slowly, he raised his hands. I'm not leaving. Nova blinked. What? Shoot me if you want. Ronan dropped to his knees in the mud. He bowed his head, exposing his neck to her. Ultimate submission. But I am not leaving my son again. Silence stretched tight. The only sound was the boy's hitching breath and the trembling of Nova's finger against the trigger. The sun rose like a bruise. Purple light bled across the jagged rocks, swollen and ugly. Ronan hadn't moved. Cold morning air settled deep in his bones. His knees ached where they pressed into the hard dirt, but he remained a statue. A gargoyle guarding a treasure he had no right to claim. Inside the tent, the rhythm changed. The boy, Leo, slept on. Deep, rhythmic puffs. But Nova was awake. Her scent shifted. The sharp tang of adrenaline soured into heavy exhaustion. She paced, back and forth. A caged tiger. Ronan stared at his dust-covered hands. I have a son. The thought hit like a physical blow, a punch to the ribs, eyes like amber, and a laugh he had never heard. He couldn't leave. Council laws called an illegitimate heir a threat. Pack laws called a rejected mate dead. Burn the laws. He reached for the canteen on his belt, heavy, full of fresh spring water from the pack lands, sweet, clean, untouched by radiation. The tent flap twitched. Nova stepped out, wrecked. Dark waves of hair tangled in a mess. Grease smeared her cheek. Her eyes were red-rimmed, heavy with shadows that looked like bruises. She still wore her armor. She saw him. Her hand flew to the knife at her belt. Pure instinct. "You're still here." Her voice was flat, dead. "I told you to leave." "I can't." Ronan didn't stand. He stayed in the dirt. He looked up. "I'm not here as an alpha. I'm not here to take him. I swear it on my life, Nova." "Then why are you sitting in the dirt like a dog?" "Because I'm guarding him." Nova laughed, a dry, cracking sound. "He doesn't need your protection. I've kept him alive for 3 years without you." "I know." Ronan uncapped the canteen. The smell of fresh water cut through the sulfur stench. "You look like you're about to collapse." He held the canteen out, a simple gesture. But in the Deadlands, water was currency. Water was life. Offering water was a blood oath. Nova stared at the silver flask. Her throat bobbed. "I don't want your charity." "It's not charity. It's tribute." Her mask cracked, a hairline fracture. Her lips parted. She looked at the water with a hunger that broke his heart. She took it. She didn't drink. She poured a capful, tipped it back, and capped the rest tight. "For Leo. I'm saving it for Leo." A tear slid down Ronan's cheek. He didn't wipe it. "Drink more. I have trucks full of it. I will drain the Silver River dry if you ask me to." The amber in her eyes softened. "Why? Why now? You left us." "I was a coward." The truth tasted like bile. "I was 24. I was scared of the council. I thought I was doing right by the pack." He let his hand hover in the space between them. "I was wrong, Nova. I was so wrong." The space burned. Nova didn't pull away. She looked at his hand. Then her gaze flicked to the ridge behind him. Her eyes narrowed. "Ronan, did you bring scouts?" "No, just the convoy. Silas is sleeping in the truck." "Then who was that?" She pointed to the cliff. Ronan spun. A flash of light. A reflection on a scope. Air split open. Crack. Dust exploded next to Ronan's boot. "Sniper!" Nova didn't dive for cover. She dove for the tent. "Leo!"
The world ended with a roar. Peace shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. Orange fire erupted. The supply truck, the antibiotics, vaporized. A heat wave slammed Nova sideways into the dirt. Ears rang. A high-pitched squeal drowned out the world. "Leo." She scrambled up. Gravity tilted. Smoke rolled over the camp like a black tidal wave. Burning rubber. Cooking meat. "Leo." Smoke filled her lungs. Ash coated her tongue. Her tent was gone, collapsed. A pile of burning canvas and twisted metal poles. "No, no, no, no." She threw herself at the burning fabric. Heat blistered her hands. She didn't feel it. She clawed the canvas away. "Leo." Empty. The cot was empty. The crate was open. Her chest ached. Someone had reached inside and ripped her heart out. "Nova!" A voice cut through the ringing. She spun. Jack stood near the perimeter fence. He held a bundle wrapped in a blanket. Leo, crying, red-faced, terrified, alive. "Go." Nova waved her arms. "Get him to the tunnels. Go!" Jack sprinted. Toward the canyon wall. A second explosion hit. A mortar shell landed between them. Dirt and rocks sprayed. A wall of fire shot up, cutting her off. Jack's gone. The fire roared, a living, hungry wall. Panic tried to seize her legs. Freeze. They are taking everything. Again, the High Council, not a treaty, a massacre, an eraser for her mistake. Through the smoke, a figure ran. Ronan. He fought, partially shifted. Claws ripped through the door of a jeep. He dragged a man out and threw him 10 feet. A blur of rage. But he was fighting the wrong battle. Nova needed the tunnels. She needed Leo. A wooden beam from the depot blocked the path. Heavy. Burning. She ran toward it. She ripped the silk scarf from her neck. A remnant of her old life. She wrapped her fist tight. She reached the beam. Move! She didn't push. She punched. Crack. Charred wood splintered. Sparks showered her hair. Knuckles screamed in protest. The beam rolled aside. Path clear. She stumbled through the gap. Heat singed her eyebrows. She stopped. To her left, council soldiers regrouped. A heavy machine gun, aiming at the tunnel entrance. Aiming at where Jax and Leo ran. Something shifted inside her. Run to the tunnel, and the bullets get there first. If she wanted Leo to live, she couldn't run to him. She had to run at them. Nova turned. She looked at the machine gun nest, at the assassins in clean uniforms. Fear evaporated, replaced by something colder. Ancient. Not a victim. Not a rejected mate. The warlord of the Deadlands. She reached for the seismic thumper strapped to her back. You want a war? Her voice dropped. Dangerous. I'll give you a war. She didn't run away. She sprinted straight into the teeth of the enemy. A battle cry ripped from her throat, sounding less like a woman and more like the storm itself.
The sound wasn't a noise. It was a physical blow to the chest. Thump. Nova slammed the iron rod into the hardpan earth. Vengeance carved out of grit and fury. In the span of a breath, the ground rebelled. Vibrations rippled outward, invisible waves turning solid rock into liquid. The machine gun nest stood no chance. The earth groaned. A deep, guttural moan vibrated in Ronan's teeth. Crack! A fissure tore open beneath the council soldiers, a jagged, hungry mouth. The machine gun, the sandbags, and 3 screaming men were swallowed whole as the shelf of rock sheared off into the canyon below. Dust billowed up, a wall of choking brown powder. Nova! She stood on the edge of the fracture. The weapon's recoil had knocked her to her knees. The ground beneath her boots crumbled. Ronan moved. No thought of bullets, no thought of titles. He sprinted. Boots pounded the shaking earth. Air tasted of pulverized stone and ozone. Nova tried to stand. The ledge gave way. She slipped. No. Her body twisted in the air, fingers scrabbling for purchase on sliding shale. Nothing to grab. Ronan launched himself off the solid rock. He hit her in midair. Arms wrapped around her waist. Impact knocked the wind out of him. He didn't let go. He twisted, forcing himself beneath her, taking the brunt. They tumbled. Down. Into the darkness of the fissure. Dirt filled his mouth. Rocks battered his ribs. Protect her. Protect her. The only thought. A mantra. They hit the bottom. A slide of loose gravel. They rolled, a tangle of limbs and armor, until they slammed into a boulder. Black. Time skipped. A second? A minute? Ronan gasped. Air rushed back into his lungs. Pain radiated from his left shoulder, a sharp, hot poker of agony. He blinked dust from his eyes. Nova? His voice was a croak. She lay on top of him, head tucked against his chest, not moving. Fear, cold and sharp, sliced through him. Nova! He shifted, wincing as his shoulders screamed. He put a hand on her back. She groaned, low, pained. Leo, tunnel. He's safe. Ronan brushed hair from her face. Her forehead bled, a nasty gash. You bought them time. The gun is gone. Nova pushed herself up, hands shaking, eyes wide, unfocused. Then clarity. She looked at the cliff above, 100-foot drop. The dust clouds settled, hiding them from the soldiers. We're trapped. No. Ronan tried to sit up, hissed in pain. We're hidden. Alive, but alone. buried in the gut of the Deadlands, with an army hunting them.
Silence rang louder than the explosion. Nova sat with her back against the cold stone of the ravine wall. Adrenaline faded, leaving her shivering. Her hands were covered in dust and dried blood. Ronan sat opposite. He had torn the sleeve off his expensive shirt to bind his shoulder. The white fabric was already soaked through with red. The space between them burned. Not just pain, intimacy. For 3 years, she built a fortress around her heart. Convinced herself he was a monster. A cold, calculating politician who discarded her because she wasn't useful. But a monster doesn't jump off a cliff to catch you. You're bleeding. Her voice sounded hollow in the narrow space. I'll live. Ronan grunted, pulling the knot tight with his teeth. He didn't look at her. I've had worse from training whelps. Why did you do it? Ronan stopped. He looked up, eyes gold in the shadows, intense, unwavering. Do what? Jump. You could have stayed on the ridge. You could have walked away. You have a pack to lead. I have a family to protect. Nova flinched. The word family felt like a weapon. We aren't your family, Ronan. You made that clear when you married the High Elder's daughter. Ronan went still. Truth unraveled his expression. Pain shifted to confusion. Married? Nova. I never married her. Nova froze. What? I never married her. He leaned forward. The intensity in his gaze pinned her to the rock. I called it off the day you left. I tore up the contract in front of the council. I told them if I couldn't have my true mate, I would rule alone. Her chest ached, a sharp physical pang. But the reports, the scouts said there was a ceremony. They said you had a bonding feast. It was a lie. His voice roughened with suppressed rage. The council lied to you, just like they lied to me about the baby. Her thoughts spun. 3 years of hating him, 3 years of telling herself he was happy in a palace while she ate sand. Anger drained out, leaving her empty. They told me you banished me. They said you signed the order yourself because I was lowborn. Because I was pollution. Ronan let out a sound. Half growl, half sob. He crawled across the small space. Ignored his shoulder. He reached out, framing her face in his hands. Thumbs brushed away the dirt on her cheeks. I would burn the world before I banished you. I searched for you. Every day. I sent trackers. I sent spies. They all came back empty. The council. They must have intercepted them. The wall she built didn't just crack. It shattered. She looked at him. Really looked at him. Not the enemy. A victim of the same war. Ronan. I am here now. He leaned his forehead against hers, skin burning up. And I am not leaving without you or Leo. A sound echoed from the top of the ravine. Scritch, scritch. Rocks falling. Voices. Check the fissure. The bitch queen fell. Find the body. Nova stiffened. Hand to the knife at her belt. They're coming down. Ronan's eyes hardened. Tenderness vanished. The Alpha returned. Let them come, he growled. He tried to stand but stumbled, losing too much blood. Nova caught him, shoved him back down. No, you can't fight like this. I won't let them touch you. I know. Nova looked at the narrow opening of the ravine. She looked at the blood on his shoulder. Something shifted inside. Not just a survivor anymore, a partner. We need to move. There's a network of caves a mile south. If we can get there, we lose them. A mile? Ronan laughed darkly. In this sun? With this shoulder? Yes. Nova stood up and held out her hand. Because you're an alpha. And I'm the queen of this dust pile. And we have a son waiting for us. Ronan looked at her hand. He took it. He hauled himself up. Swayed but didn't fall. Lead the way. They turned away from the light and headed deeper into the dark, leaving the ambush behind. walking straight into the unknown. Above the ravine edge, a drone hovered silently. Its red camera, eye blinked, transmitting.
The pain wasn't just in his shoulder. It was in his teeth. It throbbed with every heartbeat, a hot, rhythmic hammer striking an anvil inside his skull. Ronan stumbled. His boot caught a root. The world tilted sideways. Easy. Hands grabbed him. Small hands, made of iron. Nova hauled him up. We need to stop. His tongue scraped against the roof of his mouth like sandpaper. Nova, I'm slowing you down. Shut up. No venom, only fear. They were deep in the slot canyons. The sun was a distant memory, a sliver of cruel blue light far above the red walls. Down here, the air was cool, damp. It smelled of wet stone and old bones. Ronan looked at her. She favored her left leg, a limp. Guilt washed over him, colder than the cave air. She was injured, but she was carrying him. The rejected mate was carrying the alpha. Why? The fever made his thoughts slippery. Why didn't you let me fall? Nova kept her eyes on the path, scanning for shadows. Because Leo needs his father, even if his father is an idiot. Ronan let out a breathless laugh. It turned into a cough. Copper filled his mouth. He looked at his shoulder. The bandage was black with blood. The skin around it was angry, red streaks shooting down his arm. Wolfsbane. A slow paralysis. First the arm, then the lungs, then the heart. Gravity won. His knees buckled. He didn't stumble. He collapsed. Ronan. Nova dropped to her knees. She ripped the canteen from her belt, the clean water. She poured it over his wound. Waste, he mumbled. Don't waste it. It's not waste if it keeps you alive. She tore a strip from her own shirt. She packed the wound. Her hands shook, but her touch was gentle. The alpha in him shattered. He reached up. His hand, heavy as lead, cupped her cheek. I never stopped. The truth leaked out of him with the blood. I never stopped loving you. Not for a day. Not for an hour. Nova froze. Her fierce, guarded eyes filled with tears. Don't, she whispered. Don't say that. Not here. Not when we're dying. I need you to know. He forced his eyes open. If I die in this hole, you tell him. You tell Leo I wanted him. You are not dying. Her voice echoed off the canyon walls. I didn't survive 3 years in hell just to watch you give up now. The space between them burned. She leaned down. She pressed her forehead against his. She was sweating. He was freezing. Get up, Ronan. Get up and fight. A sound cut through the intimacy. Whirr, high-pitched, mechanical. Ronan knew that sound. Drone. Nova looked up. Her face went pale. They found us.
The drone wasn't a toy. It was a hunter-killer. It hovered 50 feet above, a black insect against the strip of sky. Its red camera eye blinked, blink, blink, locking on. Nova scrambled back, dragging Ronan into the shadow of an overhang. Did it see us? His voice slurred. The wolfsbane reached for his heart. It has thermal. Nova checked her nail gun. 3 nails, useless against armor. It sees heat, and you're burning up. She scanned the canyon. Dead end. Box canyon. The only way out was back toward the drone, back toward the assassins. If they stayed, the drone guided the soldiers in. They killed Ronan. They killed her. Then they found the tunnels. They found Jax. They found Leo. Her chest ached. She looked at Ronan, fading, eyes half closed. He couldn't fight. He couldn't run. Stay with him. They both die. Leave him. He dies. Unless. A third option. A terrible option. Ronan. He hummed, barely conscious. I need you to stay here. She grabbed his good hand. She pressed her obsidian dagger into his palm. Don't move. Don't make a sound. Stay in the shadow. Nova? He tried to grip her fingers, weak. Where are you going? She didn't answer. If she spoke, she would scream. She kissed his burning forehead. Protect the pack. She stood up. She didn't stay in the shadows. She walked out, into the center of the canyon, into the sunlight. The drone turned. Mechanical whine grew louder. The red eye fixed on her. Nova raised her arms. Not surrender. Bait. She pulled her last flare, magnesium, crack. She struck it. Brilliant, blinding red light erupted in her hand. Over here! She waved the flare. I'm right here, you metal bastard. Come and get me. The drone dipped. It chirped. Target acquired. Nova ran. She ran away from Ronan. Toward the steep, exposed cliff face. Decoy. Heart pounded a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Run, run, save him, save Leo. Bullets kicked up dust at her heels. Ping, ping. Snipers on the ridge, shooting at the flare. At her. Good. They weren't looking at the shadows. They weren't looking at the dying Alpha. Nova scrambled up the rocks. Breath tore at her lungs. A shadow fell over her. Not the drone, a man. A high council soldier dropped from the ledge. Huge. Armored. He raised a rifle. He fired. Click jammed sand in the receiver. Nova didn't hesitate. She swung the burning magnesium flare like a club. She smashed it into his helmet. The soldier screamed. Heat melted the visor. He stumbled back, flailing. Nova didn't stop. She kicked him in the chest. He went over the edge. More boots on stone, shouting. We have her! The Warlord is cornered. Nova reached the top, trapped. Sheer drop on one side, a wall of soldiers on the other. She looked down into the canyon. She couldn't see Ronan, safe, hidden. She looked north, toward the tunnels, toward Leo. I love you, baby. Be brave. Nova turned to face the 5 soldiers cresting the ridge. No ammo, no knife. Only a dying flare and a mother's rage. Come. On! A dart hit her neck, small, silent. Nova reached up. She pulled it out. Vision blurred, knees turned to water, tranquilizer. Gravity shifted. She fell, not off the cliff. To her knees. The last thing she saw was a boot, black, polished, with the High Council seal, stepping on her hand. Darkness.
Silence pressed against his eardrums, heavy, like deep water. Ronan gasped. Air rushed into his lungs, burning cold. He tried to sit up. His body didn't listen. Limbs packed with wet sand. Wolfsbane. A sluggish, icy poison making his heart stutter. Thump. Pause. Thump. He blinked. Canyon dark. Purple shadows. First stars. Nova? His voice was a ghost, a whisper dead before it left his lips. He reached out. Hand hit stone, cold, empty. Memory flooded back. The drone, the flare, the red light burning in her hand. She ran. She ran away from him, to draw the fire, to save him. No. He forced his arm to move. It trembled violently. He clawed at the dirt, dragging himself out of the overhang. Canyon floor empty. Boot prints, heavy, soldiers, everywhere near where she stood. And then, drag marks. 2 parallel lines in the dust. They took her. His chest ripped open. He slammed his fist into the ground. Again. Again. Knuckles bled. I failed. He choked. I failed her. Alpha. Protect her. He let his mate, the mother of his son, walk into a firing squad to save his miserable life. He slumped forward, forehead resting on cool rock. Despair, black and suffocating, wrapped his throat. Something poked his leg, hard, sharp. Ronan shifted, looked down, wedged in a crack where she sat, a glint of black glass, the obsidian dagger. She left it, pressed it into his hand before she ran. Ronan reached, fingers wrapped around the hilt, leather grip still warm, held her heat, her scent, dust and determination. He pulled it free, blade jagged, cruel, a weapon made for a survivor. Something inside him ignited. Despair didn't vanish, it turned into fuel. He looked at the blade. Not a goodbye. In order. Fight. Ronan gritted his teeth. He dug the tip into the stone. A crutch. Get up, he snarled. Legs screamed. Vision swam. He pushed, poured every ounce of will into his muscles. He stood, swayed, bracing against the canyon wall. Looked at the drag marks leading north, toward the extraction point. I am coming for you, he whispered to the darkness. And I am going to burn their city to the ground. With every step, the poison burned a little less, replaced by the fire of a wolf who had lost everything and had nothing left to lose.
Wake up. The world snapped into focus. White, blinding, sterile white. Nova squeezed her eyes shut. Groan escaped. Head split open with an axe. She's awake. Voice smooth, cultured. Nova forced her eyes open. Not the canyon, not the Deadlands. Room of glass and steel. Air smelled of antiseptic and lemon polish. Stomach churned. The smell of the High Council. She tried to move. Clank. Wrists bound to a metal chair. Silver cuffs. Metal burned against skin. Neutralized strength. Kept her human. Gravity tilted. She looked up. Man in a pristine grey suit. Silver hair. Perfectly coiffed. Eyes cold blue chips of ice. Elder Thorn. Head of the council. The man who signed her rejection order 3 years ago. Welcome back to civilization, Nova. Smile didn't reach his eyes. Where is he? Throat raw. Where is Ronan? Thorn chuckled. Picked up a datapad. The Alpha? Oh, he's dead. Nova stopped breathing. Or he will be soon. Wolfsbane is a nasty way to go. Slow paralysis, suffocation. Probably gasping his last breath in that ditch where you left him. Chest ached. You're lying. He's stronger than you think. Strength is irrelevant against chemistry. Thorn tapped the screen. But let's talk about something more interesting. The abomination. He turned the screen. Nova's blood froze. Grainy drone image. Tunnel entrance. The one Jax took. We found the heat signatures. 2 of them. One adult. One remarkably small. Fear seized her. Pure primal terror. Don't you touch him. Thorn leaned in. Smelled of expensive cologne and cruelty. A hybrid. Born of a rejected mate and a royal alpha. It's against nature, Nova. A stain on our lineage. Hand on the arm of her chair. But stains can be useful. If contained. Truth unraveled. You don't want to kill him. Voice shook. You want to use him. We want to study him. And control him. Imagine a soldier with Ronan's strength and your resilience. Valuable asset. He straightened his tie. The deal, Nova. You sign a confession. Admit you seduced the Alpha with dark magic. Publicly renounce your claim on him and the child. Give us custody. And if I don't? Thorn smiled, terrifying. Then we collapsed the tunnel. He pulled a remote. 1 red button. Charges set on the entrance. 1 press. Your son is buried under 1,000 tons of rock. Thoughts spun. Remote. Cold eyes. He would do it. Kill a child to keep power. Nova slumped. Fight drained. If I sign, will you let him live? Raised in the Citadel. Educated. Safe. But he will never know you. Space burned. Her life for his, motherhood for survival, tears blurred vision, hot, stinging. Give me the pen. Thorn smirked, pulled a gold fountain pen. Wise choice, unclamped her right hand. Nova took the pen, fingers trembled, weight of it. Solid gold, heavy, pointed. Confession of treason, remote in his hand. Glass wall behind him. Something shifted inside. Sign, Leo becomes a lab rat. Slave. Fight. He might die. Do nothing. He was already dead. She gripped the pen. Not like a writer, like a killer. Looked up at Thorn. You forgot one thing, Elder. Thorn frowned. And what is that? I'm not just a mother. Dangerous calm. I'm a warlord. She didn't sign. She stabbed. Drove the gold pen down, not into paper, into the back of Thorn's hand, pinned it to the metal table. Thorn screamed. Remote dropped, clattered. Nova kicked the table over, lunged for the remote. Guards on her. Subdue her! Thorn shrieked, clutching his hand. Taser hit her side. Zap. Blue lightning arched through her body. Nova convulsed, fell, watched the remote slide across the polished floor. Spinning out of reach, world tilted into darkness. But as blackness took her, she wasn't afraid. She smiled. She saw the fear in the elder's eyes. He was afraid of her, and he should be.
Pain tasted like copper pennies and ash. Ronan dug his fingers into the ravine wall. The rock shredded what was left of his nails. Wolfsbane burned through his veins, turning every heartbeat into a shotgun blast against his ribs. Drag, gasp, bleed. His legs refused to cooperate, dead weight. He slammed the obsidian dagger into a crevice and hauled his chest over the lip of the canyon. Solid ground met his cheek, cold, wet slate. The world spun in a sickening blur of purple clouds and lightning. The storm had finally broken, and freezing rain lashed against his skin, mixing with the sweat and the blood. A flash of lightning tore the sky open. The devil's pulpit lit up, a jagged tooth of rock hanging over the abyss. 12 soldiers, 2 spotlights cutting through the deluge. And in the center, a small figure knelt in the mud. Nova. Relief hit Ronan so hard his vision grayed out. She was there, hands cuffed behind her back, head bowed. Elder Thorn towered over her, the chrome pistol gleaming wetly in his hand. Ronan tried to rise, tried to shift, tried to summon the wolf to rip Thorn's throat out. Nothing happened. The poison locked his joints. He collapsed back onto the stone, muscles trembling violently. Paralyzed. Useless. No. The wind tore the whisper from his lips. He was the Alpha, the king, and he lay in the dirt, paralyzed, while his queen waited to die. Thorn raised the gun, the barrel leveled at the back of Nova's skull. Ronan squeezed his eyes shut. Tears burned hot tracks through the grime on his face. "I'm sorry, Nova. I'm so sorry." A sound sliced through the thunder. Not a gunshot, a laugh. It was sharp, wild. The sound of a creature that had looked death in the eye and found it boring. Ronan's eyes snapped open. Nova wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. Her shoulders shook with mirth. She was laughing.
The rain felt like freedom. It plastered her hair to her skull and washed the crust of blood from her eyelashes. Cold silver cuffs bit into her wrists, grounding her. Above her, Elder Thorn trembled. "You find this funny?" Spittle flew from his mouth, landing on her cheek. "You think treason is a joke?" Nova stared at his boots. Italian leather, polished to a mirror shine, pristine, and parked directly on the salt crust. Thorn didn't know the Deadlands. He didn't know that after a deluge, the silica in the ground turned unstable. The vibration of the spotlights and the idling trucks hummed through the mud, turning the earth beneath him into a sinkhole waiting to happen. The vibration traveled up her shins. The earth was singing to her. She threw her head back. "I think you are standing on my land, Elder, and you didn't ask permission." Thorn's lip curled. "Your land? This is a garbage dump, and you are just trash that needs to be taken out." The safety clicked off with a metallic snick. "Say goodbye to your bastard son, Nova." Time dragged. Nova refused to blink. She stared at the fissure running between his expensive leather heels, a hairline crack widening as the mud shifted. It needed one more push, one sharp frequency to shatter the crust. She didn't need a savior. She didn't need Ronan. She filled her lungs with the scent of ozone and wet earth. "Thorn!" The scream wasn't a plea. It was a detonation, a primal, guttural roar, channeling 3 years of starvation and the ferocity of a mother protecting her young. The sound wave hit the canyon wall. The ground answered. The shelf of rock beneath Thorn's feet didn't just break, it liquefied. Thorn's eyes bulged. The gun discharged, the bullet sparking harmlessly off the granite as he flailed. What? Gravity took him. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed him whole, dragging him into the churning darkness of the landslide below. The Elder! Grab him! 2 soldiers lunged toward the pot, crumbling edge. Nova moved. She didn't run. She rolled. Get her! Nova swung her legs, using her body as a pendulum. She slammed her heavy combat boots into the shin of the nearest soldier. Bones snapped. The soldier shrieked and toppled sideways, sliding into the pit after Thorn. The remaining soldiers froze. They stared at the collapsing ground. Then they stared at the woman, laughing, in the rain. Fear. It coming off them in waves, sour and acrid. They weren't looking at a prisoner anymore. They were looking at a curse. Nova scrambled back from the edge, digging her elbows into the mud to drag herself to solid ground. She sat up, chest heaving, water dripping from her nose. She looked at the empty space where the High Council Elder had stood. She spat a mouthful of blood onto the wet rock. Gravity, the only law that matters. A shadow fell over her. Nova flinched, raising her cuffed hands like a club. Not a soldier, a wolf, massive, black fur matted with rain and gore. He limped. He shook. But his golden eyes burned with a fierce, terrifying pride. Ronan. He had watched. He had seen her kill the king. The wolf threw back his head. The howl cut through the storm. Not grief, victory, a declaration to the rain and the soldiers and the gods themselves. She is the queen. Weapons clattered to the stone. The soldiers backed away, eyes wide, looking from the dead elder to the wounded Alpha standing guard over the rogue. The war wasn't over. But the balance of power had shifted. Nova leaned her head back against the rain and closed her eyes. She hadn't waited to be saved. She had done it herself.
The storm didn't just break, it died. Silence hit the ravine like a physical weight. The only sound left was the wet, ragged rasp of lungs fighting for air. Ronan let the wolf go. Bone ground against bone. The fur retreated, stripping away his armor and leaving him shivering, naked in the freezing mud. The wolf's bane still burned, a dull, thumping ache in his marrow. But the adrenaline kept him upright. He dragged himself toward the silhouette on the rock. Nova. She sat frozen. Rain plastered her hair to her skull. She stared into the abyss where the earth had swallowed her enemy. Dignity meant nothing. Ronan hit his knees in the slush beside her. His hands, mud-caked and trembling, framed her face. The heat of her skin was the only real thing in the world. Look at me. Her eyes were blown wide. Feral, the eyes of a survivor who had just tasted blood. He's gone, she whispered. Gravity took him. You took him. He pressed his forehead against hers, sharing the same frantic breath. You saved us. A shadow fell over them. A council medic stepped forward, a syringe glinting in the spotlight. Ronan didn't think. A low, vibrating snarl ripped from his throat. The man froze, the instinctual fear of a predator locking his limbs. The cuffs. Ronan's voice was a ruin, but the command was absolute. Take them off, now. The medic scrambled, fumbling with the magnetic key. Click. The silver fell away. Nova rubbed her wrists. Raw, angry bands of red flesh stood out against her pale skin. Rage, hot and blinding, flooded Ronan's chest. He took her hands. He lifted them to his mouth and pressed his lips against the wounds, tasting the salt and the rain. Never again. I will burn their laws to ash before I let them chain you again. Alpha. Silas. He skidded down the shale slope, Jax right behind him. a thermal blanket wrapped around a small, precious bundle in Jax's arms. Leo. Nova didn't cry. She scrambled up, slipping on the wet stone, ignoring the exhaustion. Leo? She ripped the boy from Jax's arms. She buried her face in the crook of his neck, inhaling the scent of milk and sleep and safety. Mama? Leo mumbled into her shoulder. Loud noises. It's okay, baby. She rocked him, her chin trembling. The noise is gone. The bad man is gone. Ronan forced his legs to lock. He stood over them, the rogue queen and the secret heir. He looked at the council soldiers. They stood in a circle, weapons lowering, waiting for judgment, waiting for the Alpha to condemn the woman who killed an elder. Ronan walked to her side. He placed a heavy hand on her shoulder. This is your queen. His voice bounced off the canyon walls. And this is your prince. He glared at the men until they flinched. Bow. Rain lashed down. The soldiers looked at the empty spot where the elder had stood. They looked at the Alpha's burning golden eyes. One by one, knees hit the mud. They bowed to the woman in the blood-stained fatigues.
The council chambers smelled of lemon oil and old money, cold marble walls, sterile air. But today, mud tracked across the expensive Persian rug. Nova sat at the head of the obsidian table. She hadn't changed. Dried blood flaked on her collar. Her combat boots rested heavily on the polished floor. Ronan sat at her right hand. Fresh suit, no tie. The top button undone, exposing the white gauze on his neck. Across from them, the remaining elders sweated. They kept glancing at the door, where Jax and Silas stood guard, pack and rogue, shoulders brushing. Elder Grayson cleared his throat, the sound distinct in the thick silence. Alpha Ronan, regarding the succession, we must discuss. There is no succession. Ronan didn't blink. The council is dissolved. Dissolved? You can't. I can. Ronan leaned back. Thorn tried to murder my son. He tried to murder my mate. The system failed. He reached into his pocket. A small velvet box slid across the black table. Nova flipped the lid. The Alpha's signet. Heavy gold. The wolf crest. 3 years ago, that gold would have felt warm. It would have meant safety. It would have meant she wasn't trash. But the metal looked cold under the fluorescent lights. She looked at Ronan. His eyes were soft, pleading. He wanted to give her the kingdom. She snapped the box shut. She didn't slide the ring onto her finger. She reached into her boot. Leather squeaked as she unsheathed the obsidian dagger, the blade she had carried through hell. She slammed the blade onto the table. Then she placed the ring box next to it, side by side, gold and glass. I don't want your protection, Ronan. Ronan's face fell, his scent turning sour with anxiety. Nova. And I won't be a mate who plans galas while you run the pack. She leaned forward. Her eyes burned with the amber fire of the Deadlands. I am a warlord. I have a camp to feed. I have a trade route to hold. She tapped the flat of the black blade. I will be your partner, your equal. The Deadlands and the Packlands will be allies. We will build a new nation, 2 kingdoms, joined by blood. She met his gaze. I don't want to be your queen, Ronan. I want to be your co-signer. Ronan didn't argue. A slow, wolfish grin spread across his face. Pride radiated off him like heat. He covered her hand with his, interlacing their fingers over the lethal glass blade. Done. The Warlord speaks for the North. The heavy oak doors creaked open. A small boy sprinted in. He wore a miniature leather jacket. He was laughing, chasing a red ball. He stopped. One brown eye, one gold. He shifted. The air popped with the change. A clumsy ball of fur with silver-tipped ears tumbled onto the rug. He yipped, high and squeaky, and mauled Elder Grayson's Italian loafer. The elder froze in horror. Ronan's laugh boomed against the marble walls, a deep, rich sound that chased the shadows out of the room. Nova smiled. She picked up a pen. She tapped it against the mahogany, a gavel, calling the court to order. "Now," she said, her voice steel, "let's discuss the new trade tax on antibiotics."